Some video game levels push boundaries, some make statements, leave players speechless.
I want to see my nephew.
This can be good, and it can also be a time when developers, publishers, and even governments go, yeah, let's not do that anymore. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 missions so controversial they never returned. Starting off with number 10, it's Operation 40 from Call of Duty Black Ops. Everybody knows what the real, actual, most controversial mission in the Call of Duty franchise is, but we've talked about that before in our 10 most controversial game levels ever, kind of what this video is a sequel to, so if you want to go check that out, go there. But today we're looking at the first mission in the original Black Ops campaign that managed to cause an international incident. You might not think it's particularly controversial at first blush. It's a pretty straightforward opening mission for a Call of Duty game about a botched assassination attempt, but keep in mind, the guy they send you to kill is Fidel Castro. You even kill him, or it looks like it. It later turns out that the guy you killed was a body double, but the game pretty clearly depicts you killing a guy that looks like Fidel Castro, so to the surprise of no one, the Cuban government was not pleased. And in all seriousness, I get it. It's done in pretty poor taste. Like, was the slow-mo bullet camera really that necessary? I guess they wanted to open with something shocking, but conspicuously for the rest of Black Ops, you don't do anything like this again. I mean, they do continue to include major historical figures, Manuel Noriega, for instance, but you don't actually kill them. You do beat up Mr. Noriega a lot, and there's a convoluted plot where you think you're killing him, but it's so far removed from reality that it cannot possibly work as salaciously as that first mission in Black Ops. At number 9 is killing Batman with the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Rocksteady knew what they were doing with the title. They knew the game was going to be at least a little controversial among the DC faithful. Just cause that name, oh, it's provocative. You playing a game where you kill all of your favorites? Kind of a bold move in a way, and not one that I'm automatically angered by. In fact, if you did something actually interesting, cool. And usually live service games, they try to be as safe and appealing to a mass market as possible, and that sounds like doing something different. And it's not just me, it's the gameranx is not really the sentimental sorts. We're all pretty much fine with the premise of this game. The problem was the execution, not the idea. And let's be serious, the death of Batman was going to be a sore subject for a lot of people regardless, especially because the unfortunate circumstances of the game releasing right around the time of the death of Kevin Conroy. So for a lot of people, this was the last performance of quote-unquote the definitive voice of Batman. I am among those people. In terms of animated or video game portrayals, it's him. I also think if they'd just gotten somebody else to do the voice, you can't really blame anybody at Rocksteady for somebody dying, obviously. But the sequence that happened sort of just stoked a firestorm of resentment. Now, the game didn't do itself any favors by making the actual final encounter with Batman so underwhelming. They actually did a pretty good job of building up the threat of an evil Batman, in the beginning of the game. But then when you fight him, he's literally a fear gas ghost. And, well, it just does not go the way that you would expect Batman to take on a group of supervillains.
Welcome to your worst nightmare, buds.
Weapons free, boys. He's standing right there.
Yeah, and he's a big giant demon.
The actual final scene where the squad executes Batman's pretty bad too. They just plant his woozy ass on a park bench and bang. He doesn't go out like a badass. He gets taken out like a chump after a bizarre speech about how he's actually the bad guy or something. Like, I can kind of see what they were going for, I guess, if I think for a lot. A lot of the anger over the thing is actually overblown because it was kind of a classic bait and switch to get everybody all riled up, because it was eventually revealed that the Batman you killed, it's not even the real Batman. Doesn't change the fact that he apparently killed Nightwing from the Arkham games, and I don't think he was a Brainiac clone.
Robin was here. I do not think he won.
That's got Robin.
That's the real problem here. It's not just some random incarnation of Batman, it's the Arkham Trilogy Batman, and people love those games, so they see this whole sequence as some kind of insult against those games, which I don't personally necessarily agree with. I think that it's a failure rather than an insult. I think a lot of people want to ascribe some kind of intent, which sort of makes it make sense. Why did this beloved developer fail so miserably at something. And I just think that, you know, it's a live service game and they were trying to do something unexpected and provocative and had no real particularly good reason to. But, you know, that's kind of what happens when you put somebody who doesn't make live service games on a live service game. It tends to have a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be there. Provocative, again, maybe they succeeded at that part of it. Maybe a little too well, even. Because, man, people were livid about this. With Rocksteady apparently back working on a new, like, normal Batman game again, I don't think something like this is ever going to happen again, thankfully, at least from them. At number 8 is the tug-of-war in Mario Party. How can a minigame be so controversial? Well, somehow Nintendo found a way with the child hand-destroying analog stick rotating minigames. If you were a kid who played Mario Party way back, then you know what we're talking about. Everyone complained about those minigames because the sharpness of the stick and the speed at which they expect you to turn the stick, it had people literally injuring their hands trying to win at them. Kids were actually getting cuts and blisters on their hands from rotating too hard. It's one of those things everybody knew about and joked about, but it wasn't all like just schoolyard talk. There was an actual controversy. Seriously, the New York State Attorney General got involved in anything. Oh yeah, the Cuban government, that wasn't the only time a government got involved. It wasn't a lawsuit. Like, they just made a formal request that the minigame in question, they made a formal request Nintendo followed and eventually led to them putting out special gloves that people who own the game could get in the mail so that they didn't hurt themselves playing Mario Party. That's an absurd set of information to relay. At least for a while, Nintendo intentionally avoided adding stick rotating minigames for Mario Party. They did eventually bring it back with Mario Party Superstars, but they soft rounded the edges of modern analog sticks. I don't know if it's specifically because of this or whatever, but the sticks are different from the Nintendo 64 sticks. And number 7, Alien Abduction / Unplanned Parenthood in South Park: The Stick of Truth. A series that's not afraid to court controversy, certainly. They definitely managed to do it with The Stick of Truth, which didn't just depict some unpleasant things happening by way of QTE. It actually managed to get some of these scenes banned in Europe and Australia. The EU and AU copies of the game censor these parts of the game completely. You just get an image of the European flag and some text describing what would have happened in the segment. Like, they knew what they were doing. The parts that got censored were very gross, so I'm sure they expected at least a few countries to get their hackles up about it. It's one of those things that people playing the game don't really care about because it's South Park. Fans expect some audaciously explicit and gross stuff, but certain games, rating organizations, they're a little more uptight than the average South Park fan. I know, weird, right? What's actually also weird is how few people are subscribed compared to how many people watch. It's actually not a huge ratio. Like, a lot of you watching are not subscribed. So if I'd like to ask that you click the subscribe button. I think that it will work out well for us both. You, in that there will be new content, and us, in that there will be people to watch the content, which of course doesn't make itself. We certainly appreciate everybody's subscription though, because again, it does help us make this stuff. And again, we hope it's something that you want to see. So thanks for clicking subscribe. Let's get back to the video. At number 6 is the Asari Consort in Mass Effect, probably the most exaggerated, drummed-up fake controversies on the list so far. The entire Mass Effect Fox News kerfuffle was so ridiculous because the stuff they were claiming was really offensive. It was really just a big load of nothing. Like, it's barely worth talking about because it's, in reality, so uncontroversial. The big thing they were getting worked up about was the potential depiction of same-sex romance, which was specifically in response to the Asari Consort quest, where nothing happens. In today's games, like, basically anything goes. Nobody cares. It's all just action figures getting mashed up together one way or the other. But a cheesy little cutscene that lasts for seconds and shows nothing explicit was enough to get everyone worked up back when Mass Effect first came out. I guess the outrage worked in a way because we never saw that character again, but I didn't see many people complaining about it. Like, the character is pretty lame anyway, so whatever.
I've never learned its use or purpose, but I sense it is time for me to pass it on. And now I must ask you to leave. I have done everything I can for you.
And number 5 is Manchester and Resistance Fall of Man, another mostly forgotten controversy. Somehow, Resistance Fall of Man, the Insomniac FPS for the PlayStation 3, managed to draw the ire of the Church of England. I'd assumed that it was because they portrayed the church in a negative light or made a vicar look bad or something, but no, all the game did was had you fight some aliens inside the Manchester Cathedral, which, yeah, that's it. They just didn't like the game depicting combat inside the cathedral. They released a statement calling for the game to be withdrawn or the cathedral removed, but Insomniac didn't do anything. Sony still published the game, and nobody really cared. So not much of a controversy, but when an entire religion gets mad at your game, it's hard not to call that a controversy, even if the whole thing was just stupid and overblown. I will say no other game in the series depicts any other famous English churches that you fight through, so maybe the threats worked, or just maybe it didn't need to happen again. I don't know. Probably the threats worked. And number 4 is the Mountain Temple from the 2013 Tomb Raider reboot. Outside of claims it's an Uncharted clone, the first rebooted Tomb Raider game was pretty positively received. It is kind of an Uncharted clone, but Uncharted is kind of a Tomb Raider clone. So let's not get too far off track with that. People like the game for the most part. There was a moment that managed to get parts of the community in an uproar, which was the part at the start of the game where Lara Croft has to escape from a gang of scavengers. The controversial moment happens when she gets caught by one. In the main game, the dude acts vaguely creepy before he gets murked, but apparently at some point during development, the scene was a lot more explicit, let's say. An executive producer on the game said as much during a pre-release interview, which caused a lot of people to raise their eyebrows. Like, seriously, this is a Tomb Raider game. What's going on here, guys?
Don't hurt them,
I
please!
said, silence, girl. А ты ведь хорошенькая, да? Напоминаешь мою сестру.
The narrative around this whole sequence is still rooted in that initial interview, so a lot of the discussion involves people talking about how inappropriate that is, how offensive that is, but it's not actually in the game. There's a hint. You kind of feel like it's a little not great, but it's so subdued that it's seriously not. I mean, if they hadn't talked about it, nobody, I think, would have said anything. And there's a couple of ways you could approach this, like maybe that thing shouldn't have been there, so the discussion should have been avoided entirely. I think they just shouldn't have said anything, because I do think that bad guys acting creepy isn't the worst thing in the world. Like, obviously there's a line where you don't want to go when depicting stuff in, like, a generally mainstream game. But also, nothing even remotely like this ever happens again in the reboot games. So, clearly, lesson learned. And number 3, it's Blight Town from Dark Souls. If you've ever played Dark Souls, you've experienced pain. But if you've trudged through Blight Town, you have built character, to say the very least. And I don't mean in the character builder, I mean like traumatically speaking. Blight Town is just this vertical nightmare filled with sludge and questionable footing and, lag. Lag is probably the real thing I remember from Blight Town. It's real buggy, and not just because there are lots of mosquitoes. I mean, like game bugs, a lot of that. Originally in the Dark Souls release on PS3 and Xbox 360, Blighttown became famous for its abysmal frame rate. On top of that frame rate, you have all these narrow walkways, which should run a lot better, let's say. I mean, they do now, but back when it came out, I think they do now. The last time I played it, it wasn't bad. But you got the infinitely respawning poison mosquitoes, the club-wielding ogres that launch you off cliffs, bosses with that camera. That camera from that particular game was not great. Also, you were just wading through knee-deep sewage all the time, so you were pretty much always poisoned. Again, the remastered version has a better frame rate, but the other stuff's still there. I don't mean the bugs. Well, I do mean the mosquitoes. I don't know. It's really a miserable mission. Moving on to number 2, it's the Water Temple. Oh yeah, we're stirring that pot up today. Honestly, just saying the words Water Temple from Ocarina of Time is enough to, it brings the 1,000-yard stare out in the late 90s gamer. It's supposed to be a dungeon, but you're really just doing plumbing, right? That's what it really is. You are raising and lowering the water level over and over and over and over. And you have to do this because you keep having to backtrack through identical corridors. You gotta play Zelda's Lullaby repeatedly, and then ask yourself if that door is the same door or a different door, because maybe last time you saw it, it was underwater. It looked a little different. Maybe it's not the same door anymore. I don't know. To twist the knife, I might add, if you remember the original Ocarina of Time pause menu, and I'm not expecting everyone here to, a lot of people have only played this on 3DS or Nintendo Switch, or I think there's a PC port of this at this point. Oh yeah, somebody did it. I googled, somebody did it. That looks nice. Just gonna snatch that for later today. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The original pause menu made equipping the iron boots really, really annoying, because every time you needed to sink or to float, you had to pause, switch screens, toggle the boots on or off, do your thing, do it again, and it's every 10 feet. Like, it was so bad that when they remade it on 3DS, Nintendo added a dedicated button for the iron boots. And if I'm completely honest, it was something that they deserved accolades for doing, because Ocarina of Time is a great game. It is an amazing game, but that Water Temple, holy hell, man. And finally, at number 1, hot coffee from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. One of the most controversial things to ever appear in a game ever, and it wasn't actually in the game. Originally, in San Andreas, there was going to be a sex minigame in which CJ could do the deed with his girlfriend, but it got dummied out in order to secure a mature rating rather than an adults-only rating by the ESRB. It was not completely removed from the game, just dummied out and made inaccessible. That was Rockstar's mistake, and it ended up causing a lot of problems. If they just removed the minigame entirely instead of leaving it on the disc, so much pointless controversy could have been avoided. There were lawsuits. Games were recalled. The game got banned in Australia after it had already come out. It was all a mess. And just because some modder decided to restore some cut content that most players would never see. And to be frank, I don't think it was finished completely. At some point, they knew that they weren't going to be able to secure a mature, so they just stopped and dummied it out. Hard to articulate just how big of a controversy it was, because if you actually see the minigame, it's really nothing. It's barely worth talking about, but because it was a sex minigame in a game that was already rated mature, but also just in a video game, I think that was sex in a video game? Oh, so many pundits and politicians thought of video games as kid stuff, and they really made a meal out of this. The thought of polluting our young, impressionable minds with polygons grinding against each other was just too much for them to take. Even though, again, it was not actually in the game. You could not access it without mods. So, in my opinion, a very stupid, pointless controversy, but Rockstar never returned to hot coffee. They never attempted another sex minigame again. The game still has sex, but they don't have mini games associated with it. Not GTA 4 or 5. Maybe 6 will break the trend at this point, but I'd say it's unlikely. Significantly more likely is that they will parody OnlyFans in some way, but I'll bet it's not a minigame. Just gonna say that, I'll bet it's not a minigame. If it is, well, I think we'll all have a pretty big laugh. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. We'll see you next time, right here on GameRanx.